Then at 10 o'clock Eastern tonight on NBA TV, that's 7 Pacific, the Lakers back at it, looking to go to 3-0 as they host the Minnesota Timberwolves. Listen, I don't love looking at averages after 2 games. That's just way too simple math. But to put it in perspective, the Lakers are getting scoring balance. They have 5 guys over the first 2 games, Isiah, that are averaging double figures. You're starting to see this team and the offseason work that Rob Pelinka and company did.
Well, again, they have established roles. You have a coaching staff who knows how they want to play. They bring in Schroeder and they bring in Harrell, guys who know exactly what they want to do and how to do it. So they've upgraded their talent, they've upgraded their roster. But more importantly, you have LeBron James, who understands how to bring people together collectively off the court. So, he is the best leader right now in the NBA in terms of gathering, focusing a team, and moving them forward throughout the season. And I'm not surprised at the start that they have. And I know they're playing Minnesota tonight. And I personally root for Karl Anthony Towns this year, every game he plays. So I am hoping that Karl Anthony Towns outplays the Los Angeles Lakers tonight, because this year, every time Cat steps out on the floor, I am rooting for Karl Anthony Towns to have a big game and to be successful, because, we all owe him love, and I'm going to give that to him.
Amen. And to go back to that Lakers team, the other thing about them is, and you talked about this, Isiah, the roles that their guys have, I think they can excel in. Because even take Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol and what he did in their last game, he only scored 2 points, but he got 9 rebounds. If that were in Toronto, that wouldn't help Toronto. But on this team, that's all they need from him. Is for him to play big, rebound, and be a point center at that high post offensively. He's solid in his role. Harold, people blamed him for his play, but the reality is that Clippers team didn't have a center. And that's why the Joker was able to have the kind of damage and series he had. Whereas here, they can pair him alongside Davis or Gasol. So he doesn't have to guard the potent offensive centers in the league, and he can focus on what he does best, which is finishing and rebounding and setting those screens. So, and then you throw Schroeder, same thing. He gets to play his game, and that's the beauty of this Lakers team. And the X factor for me is going to be Kuzma.
Yeah.
He's playing the thing that people discount sometimes is Kyle Kuzma's learning how to play championship caliber basketball. Watching the last game against Dallas, one thing I was impressed with was all the basketball winning plays he made. It had nothing to do with his shooting. Loose balls, taking charges, moving the basketball, positional defense. He was doing stuff that 2 years ago he didn't know how to do. So that tells you he's growing and understanding, and the team understands his value. And so I think he's in a position of comfort. So I'm anxious to see how this team continues to progress. The regular season is going to be long for them after that shortened offseason, but I still think they're going to be the team to beat if they also can stay healthy.
Lakers, Timberwolves, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, right here live on NBA TV. Our Week 1 in review continues with a guy who was incredibly comfortable in it. Week 1 in review. We're almost fully complete with Week 1 in the NBA. And let's start here with the team that we're going to see in our second game, the Brooklyn Nets. All the expectations, all the drama on and off the court surrounding this team. Steve Nash, his first year as a head coach. And you have KD and Kyrie getting off to this incredible 2-game start. GA, what do you make of how they've played? How much stock do you put into what you've seen so far?
Well, I think you put a lot of stock into it because what you see from Kyrie and Kevin Durant are the things that we've seen them do over the course of their careers when healthy. And the other aspect of that is when they've been paired with another truly great player, they've had a lot of success. In Kyrie's case, prior to Boston, he'd gone to the finals in every year that he played with LeBron James. And when Durant, when he went to Golden State, he went to the finals every year he played with those guys. And so I think they've got a solid team. I think they're going to have a legit chance, but we still have concerns, big picture. Will they be healthy? Durant is coming off a significant injury. Kyrie has dealt with his injuries in the past, but when healthy, these are two of the most dynamic players. Arguably, you could argue these two, along with probably James Harden, the 3 most dynamic offensive players this game has. And so to couple those two, they're very efficient as they've been early on. They're impressive. They got depth. They have issues and concerns, but they're so good offensively that I think they're going to create a lot of problems for teams as we move forward in this regular season.
Isaiah, do you expect it to be this smooth to start?
Yes, I did, because they're that balanced. And I'll start with the coaching staff. When you look at Nash and you look at D'Antoni, who have history with each other, and then the addition of Ime Udoka, and then you got Amari Stoudemire, right? So their style of play, they understand how they want to play from day one. And for a first-time coach, that's the most important thing. How are you going to play? What's going to be your style of play? Where they come with a history of a style of play with their coaching staff who have worked together, played together, and know how they want to play. And then when you put KD and Kyrie together out on the floor, they understand that system. They know how to play in that system. And by the way, they may be the two best players ever to play in this system under D'Antoni, Steve Nash, this system that they use. So I'm not surprised. And I look at Kyrie Irving as a player and a person, keyword person, who has matured, who has grown, and is comfortable with himself, comfortable with his maturity, comfortable with his path and journey in life that he's embarked on. So I look at the Nets, and I'm not surprised by their start. I think they're the real deal. I don't see any, bumps or hurdles along the way other than probably physicality or injury. But I think their style of play is great. And then LeVert, going to the bench and then coming off as a sixth man, being able to play a la like a James Harden. He's got four guys around him in that second unit that accepts their role of non-shooters or, get what they can after LeVert gets what he can. Forgive me for calling them non-shooters because they're not non-shooters, but I would say they're happy to take a secondary role in that second unit and let LeVert be the primary distributor and also scorer. So I think they got their roles figured out. I think everything is set, and I really like what I see. I picked Steve Nash to be the coach of the year, and thus far he hasn't disappointed.
What you just talked about is why Brooklyn Net fans are so split when they heard about the rumors of James Harden wanting to come to Brooklyn, because they understand the talent that James Harden is. But just what you covered there, Isaiah, the Nets, on top of being top heavy with two stars, have so much depth around those guys that they would have to give up. The roster would get purged of that talent if they had to trade for James Harden. Let's switch gears and talk about the champs. We're shorthanded without John Wall, without DeMarcus Cousins, without Eric Gordon, and others. They finally got on the court to play a game. James Harden, making his season debut, goes off for 44 points amid all of the controversy and drama that's surrounding this team. On top of the COVID issues, James Harden still wants a trade. GA, what do you make of what's happening in Houston? And if not for a C.J. McCollum game-winning shot last night, the Rockets are 1-0.
Yeah, listen, that soap opera is going to continue to play out. I still do feel like ultimately he's going to get traded. I think he's just made that decision that he wants to move on. And I think he's put the Rockets in a position where they are going to now be willing to move on. And honestly, he helped himself and the Rockets with his performance because, you hear all this talk about, he's hurting his trade value. And I always laugh at that conversation because I'm like, what true superstar have you ever seen hurt their trade value? Now, if he was a guy that didn't play, right. Now here's a guy that basically hadn't had training camp, right? Dealt with all the stuff he's dealt with, and he comes out and he drops 44 and 17 efficiently with not a lot of help. And so, the value that he brings to the table and the kind of player he is, there's still going to be a lot of interest in him moving forward. I find that to be one of the bigger storylines as well, just figuring out where ultimately he ends up, because we all know he only wants to go to a contender. And I don't see a scenario where anybody else is going to get into the party when it comes to James Harden.
Yeah, the interesting part about though is he can make a team a contender, right?
Yeah.
Right, Isaiah?
Yes, he can. And I'll say this, GA, with the team that he's on currently right now, if once you add Wall and you add Cousins and you got Woods, I mean, you can see there's enough talent there with that Rockets team that if Harden was to fully reinvest himself back into that team, hey, they one of the top 4 teams in the West, if not, moving up to the 2 or 3 spot with Harden in the way he plays, and you put a healthy Wall and Cousins back in the mix, and if they can all figure out a way to come together, other than Brooklyn or LA, I'm not sure if Harden will find a more talented team to go to than the one that he's currently on right now, if he brings all the pieces back together.
And does he even need DeMarcus Cousins? He's got the future Hall of Famer Christian Wood playing with him now, too.
Hey, he looks great, doesn't he? I mean, he really looks good.
31 points last night and 13 rebounds for Christian Wood. All right, our week 1 in review wraps up with this. Did you see this video from Chicago yesterday? Steph Curry and the Warriors getting set to play the Bulls, and Steph Curry goes out and he makes 103 consecutive three-pointers. 5 straight minutes of shooting a basketball and never missing. Isaiah, you ever seen anything like this?
No, absolutely not. And this is why, I love watching Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving play, because even in practice, they do the things, they do the sublime. They bring you the things that you can't even talk about and describe. Maybe there's only 2 other players in the history of the game that might have done this that I can think of when nobody's watching, and that may be Larry Bird